Mi nombre es Cintia Frane y en nombre de todo el capítulo de KR Argentina-Uruguay les damos la bienvenida. Es un placer volver a recibirlos acá en nuestra casa simbólica. Hoy muy bien acompañados de la oradora que nos acompañará, pero antes de eso quiero extender algunos agradecimientos, especialmente a nuestra intérprete Maritere Dobarganes de México, que está poniendo todo su corazón y su capacidad en acompañarnos hoy, al Centro Transpersonal de Buenos Aires, que nos ayudó muchísimo en la difusión. Para los que no hayan podido estar en los primeros dos encuentros, están los videos disponibles en el canal de YouTube, pueden acceder a través de nuestra página www.rdelplata.com. Bueno, paso a contarles un poquito quién es la oradora que nos acompañará hoy. Se trata de Yvonne Heath. Yvonne Heath es licenciada en enfermería desde 1988 y estuvo trabajando en muchas salas de terapia intensiva, en emergencias, en estados críticos, en el movimiento hospice, en Estados Unidos y en Canadá especialmente. Y ella, a lo largo de su trabajo, se fue desanimando en cuanto a la dificultad para poder hablar y trabajar sobre el tema del dolor, prepararnos para los momentos más difíciles, las enfermedades más discapacitantes, el dolor, el sufrimiento, las pérdidas, de un modo más abierto. Y finalmente, en 2015 dio un salto de fe, hizo un cambio, dejó la enfermería y empezó a dedicarse a ser parte de un cambio social. Se dedicó a ser una transmisora de lo que ella de sus experiencias, de lo que ella fue aprendiendo, y escribió un libro que se llama Love Your Life to Death, que sería Ama tu vida hasta la muerte, un título muy original. Tiene un programa de televisión, es presentadora de radio, también dio una charla TED en el año 2019, y bueno, hoy tenemos el gran placer y honor de tenerla aquí, así que muchas gracias, Yvonne, por estar aquí presente, y ahora dejo lugar a Victoria para que haga la traducción al inglés, y ya la estaremos escuchando a
So good evening and welcome to this room on behalf of our team, the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross chapter, Argentina-Uruguay. Thank you for being with us on our third and last webinar on ethics of hope and denial, an important and very meaningful topic in the field of care in life and death. In case you haven't been able to participate in previous presentations, you can access them in our YouTube channel through our webpage to www.ekrdelplata.com. And before introducing you to Yvonne Heath, our guest speaker, we would like to express our deep gratitude to our interpreter, Maritere Dobarganes from Mexico, who has so generously offered to assist us tonight. So, we are very excited to introduce you to Yvonne Heath, who will be sharing with us some of her experience and overall perspective on the meaning of hope and denial. A few words about Yvonne. She's a registered nurse since 1988 and has worked in 10 different hospitals in most departments, from emergency and intensive care to chemotherapy and hospice. She became disheartened by our society's reluctance to talk about, plan, and prepare for grief, transitions, and death, causing excessive suffering in life and at the end of life. She suffered too, not knowing how to do it differently. In 2015, Yvonne took a leap of faith, left her nursing career, and blazed a new trail to create social change. She shares her message with heart and humor as an inspirational speaker with her award-winning book, Love Your Life to Death, with her workshops on online programs, and as a television and radio host. In 2019, she also delivered her TEDx talk, Transforming Our Grief by Just Showing Up. Yvonne, our sincere gratitude to you for offering your time and insights with us tonight. Bueno, ahora nos vamos a dirigir a todos para pedirles si por favor pueden silenciar sus micrófonos durante todo este evento. Tenemos unos 15 minutos aproximadamente para preguntas, para luego de la exposición. Para eso les pedimos, por favor, tanto en Zoom como en Facebook Live, que puedan escribir sus preguntas en el chat una vez que termine la presentación. Y para mayor agilidad también les vamos a agradecer que encabecen sus preguntas con la palabra pregunta para identificarlas más rápido. Para escuchar en español también pueden elegir el canal de traducción con el icono del mundo abajo a la derecha y eventualmente también silenciar el audio original para escuchar un solo canal. Bueno, también les recordamos que este evento está siendo grabado y estará disponible en nuestro canal de YouTube en unos días. So, Yvonne, now I pass the mic to you.
Well, thank you so much for the lovely introduction. I don't really know what to say, and I don't know what to do. This is so uncomfortable. Just raise your hand if you've ever said these things or felt this way when someone was dying, in a crisis, suffered a loss, or just having a really bad day. Raise your hand if you've ever felt that way. Am I the only one? Yeah, I don't think so. I can tell you that in 27 years of nursing, I have felt that way more times than I can count. But I was the healthcare professional, so I should know how to handle this. I should know what to say. And here I am in 1988 when I graduated. And yes, that hair was in style then, in case you are wondering. I know it is very big. I was so full of hope. When we talk about hope, I was so full of hope for a wonderful career, and I felt so educated. I was going to know how to support people and just make such a difference. I had no idea what I did not know. But I did have a couple of heroes, and one of them, does anybody know who Patch Adams is? Dr. Patch Adams. There was a movie in 1998. Robin Williams, who lives in my heart forever, played Dr. Patch Adams, and Patch brought joy and humor to people on days they were suffering the most or dying. And so as a nurse, I wanted to be more like Patch. And when I did write my book, I even got a quote from Patch. If you gotta die, why not make it fun? Which I thought, wow, can we really do that? And then of course, my other hero, Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who is just one of the most incredible humans that has ever been on this earth. And I have her beautiful quote, and she speaks of unconditional love as being the greatest thing, the greatest gift we can give ourselves and each other. The only thing that is really sad about my nursing career is I didn't know anything else about Elizabeth's work, except we talked about 5 stages of grief and the book on death and dying. That's all I knew. And we thought we had 5 stages of grief. And as my career continued in my nursing, I realized it didn't really work that way. And then I found out that's not what Elizabeth meant at all. Oh, I can hear somebody banging. Just so you know, we can hear you. Don't say anything that you don't want us to hear. So Elizabeth has written over 24 books. Elizabeth did so much more, and I will spend the rest of my life learning and sharing her work. But as a nurse, I did bring heart and humor. I am really funny. You don't know that yet, but I am. And these are some of the ways I sometimes dressed to go work in the emergency room or chemotherapy or hospice, because I could be compassionate and I could hug people and love them, and I could be silly. But the problem was I really was not well prepared for grief, death, and dying, personally and professionally. And denial was also part of my escaping reality. Oh, it's okay, we can get through this, and we don't need to, we've learned enough. And it's interesting how damaging denial can be, and we don't even know it. And then there was a time in my life in 2010 when so many things happened personally, where our older son was went down a dangerous road of drugs and addiction, and people were kind of avoiding me because they didn't know what to do and say, and they actually were denying my pain. And I was hoping that they were going to be there for me. So it's interesting, this hope and denial can be so damaging and we don't even know it. So I couldn't do it anymore because I was suffering as a chemotherapy nurse, trying to help others, but I was not well prepared and I was suffering personally. And so in 2015, I took that leap of faith and I asked people, I wrote a book, I asked people for their stories of going through hard tragedies and grief and what helped them get through to the other side. And they taught me so much about hope. And they taught me so much about pushing denial away even when others needed to hold on to it and accepting what the outcome of their lives was going to be. And it changed my life, and I will be grateful forever. And this was all a big surprise. I didn't know I was going to do any of this. So I wrote my book, and then it ended up being radio and television, where I had the privilege to interview many wonderful people. And some of you may recognize that guy in the middle. His name is Ken Ross, in case you don't know him. And Ken and I talked about his mother's work and how it was so much more than 5 stages of grief. And I was I couldn't believe how much we didn't know about Elisabeth's work. And I did promise him that I would read all her books, so I have to get busy. And then I also interviewed my hero, Patch Adams. That's the real Patch Adams. A lot of people don't even know he's still around. And if you haven't seen the movie Patch, I would encourage you to watch it. So with Elisabeth's words and Patch and heart and humor and having great, meaningful conversations about life, grief, and death, I continued this journey of really creating change, where instead of clinging to hope for a cure, when maybe just a hope for a peaceful death would be just a better journey for everyone, and realizing that I wasn't going to be able to change everyone, and some people would stay in denial as well. But I had to change me first, and that's what I did. And so when we think of hope, right, that feeling, a feeling of expectation and desire for a certain thing to happen. And when I worked in chemotherapy especially, even so many times when people knew the facts that they were going to die soon, many times their families would hold on to hope, and they would just absolutely not talk about anything that was really going on, the denial. They would not have, no, we're not going to talk about death. And I had patients on the side say to me, I sure wish my family would talk to me about this, or I don't want to have this chemotherapy anymore. And I would say, please talk to your family, tell them the truth. And they said, no, they're not ready for me to give up. So in that moment, I had to accept again that I couldn't change everyone, but I was going to be a voice for change so that people understood that in having these meaningful conversations, that we can we can live well, grieve well, and die well. And a lot of people, when it comes to grief, people often think that grief is when somebody dies and you're sad, and it's not everything, that's it. And I went on my own journey to understand grief more. And I realized and understand now that grief is our mental, physical, and emotional reaction to loss, transitions, and change. Even in good change, there can be grief. And I just went through good change. I just moved 2 days ago to a new house. And as I was saying goodbye to my old house, I was so sad and I was grieving. And I was also very joyful to be in my new home. So you see, when we understand that grief is experienced throughout life, then perhaps we have a better chance when we are in crisis or ill or dying, that maybe we can push the denial aside and understand that grief is a natural part of this journey. Other times we experience grief, divorce, a diagnosis, a job loss, children leaving home, children not leaving home. Sometimes that happens too. And when we are caregiving and our lives are different than we thought they were going to be, accidents, mental health issues, we can experience grief in all of this. And all those things I mentioned, they could all be happening at the same time. This happened to me many years ago, and that's when I truly knew I needed to do something different. I could no longer just hope for the best and deny what was going on. In a few days, in just 3 short days, our son was having a very challenging time and with the drugs and everything, and I was very brokenhearted. My husband broke his leg, so that meant I had to do a lot more driving and a lot more work. And I was so exhausted, and I just said, I need a break. And I tried to take a break, and my phone rang. And my mom was visiting my sister. And my sister called to say, Mom just had a heart attack. Sometimes grief is like that. It just piles on. And so when people ask me, why should we prepare for grief? And this is the hard stuff. And I say, because grief shows no mercy. It arrives unannounced and uninvited. It does not care what else you are going through. And it does not care if you have had enough. It can be relentless. And it can destroy you. And grief is coming. Pretty inspiring, right? I promise it'll get lighter. Because the truth is, at any given moment, we have people here today, and I honor you all for being here. Some of you are having the greatest time of your life and wonderful moments of joy, while others are going through their deepest grief. Because in any room, someone is grieving and someone is celebrating. So when do we want to give grief all this power? I say, let's get ready. Let's get ready for grief. Because the truth is that grief and joy can coexist. They can be happening at the same time. And life really is more like a roller coaster. It's never going to be all grief or joy. So again, let's get ready and learn how to hold on this ride. The good news is that although grief is a part of this journey and sometimes the price of living and loving, it is worth it. And our hearts will heal if we learn to take better care of ourselves and each other. And the truth is, the more we are prepared to live well, grieve well, and die well, the more we can hope along the way in a more realistic, not always hope for, oh, this person's going to live no matter what. No, let's hope that they're going to live, that we can find a cure, and we can stay out of denial when the doctor says that is no longer possible, then we can continue hope for a peaceful, pain-free illness with lots of support. And then when we're nearing end of life, we hope for a peaceful transition. So you see, we never have to put away hope. We never have to give up hope. If we are well prepared to live well, grieve well, and die well, we can change what we are hoping for and not let denial rule our lives. So in the 27 years of nursing and the last several years of interviewing many people, I came up with these takeaways that I believe will help us to live life to the fullest, learn how to grieve and support one another, and yes, have the talk about end of life long before it arrives and diffuse the fear, so that along the way, hope becomes our friend and denial is not something that we need to cling to. So if everyone's ready, there are 90 takeaways. I'm just waiting for someone to make a face like, oh my goodness, how much time do we have? No, there are only 7 takeaways and I'm going to share them with you now. Takeaway number 1, the hardest one, the one that we want to deny. People want to deny that they're going to die someday. And you know, it's just, you kind of have to laugh. When I wrote my book, Love Your Life to Death, people said to me, well, I don't want to talk about that. Why should we talk about that? I said, well, because it's going to happen. And you know, when you think about it, when I ask people who doesn't want to die, well, everybody puts, oh, I don't want to die. I said, well, who wants to live forever? I mean, can you imagine if you're married to the love of your life and somebody says, how long have you been married? And you say like 250 years, you might run out of things to talk about. You know, like we are not meant to live forever. We are meant to live fully while we are here now. So let's start living fully by starting with the best time to talk about, plan, and prepare for grief, death, and dying is when we are young and healthy. Anybody out there still young and healthy? A couple of you? Okay. Well, if you haven't done it when you're young and healthy, the next best time is now. Now is the time. Now is the time. This one thing, if we could stop denying end of life, we could live more fully now. And the truth, the hard truth, the elephant in the room, I do have an elephant in the room over there. We do not all die of old age, and we do not always have a warning. That is a hard truth, one we love to deny, isn't it? And it is one that if we can accept, we don't have to like it. If we can accept it, again, we can be a light in this world. And Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, we're just privileged to watch an interview, and she talked about 2 things, how she learned more from terminally ill and dying children than anyone in the world. They were like wise old souls. How extraordinary to be able to be present there and learn from. And the other thing, she said, if healthcare professionals could accept that everyone is here, we're all here as long as we're here, and accept that people die at all ages, then we will be able to help others along this journey, right? We need to start there. And that's why my goal is for us to talk about this before grief arrives, to build a solid foundation, coping skills, and strategies so that we can again live well, grieve well, and die well, and not have to cling to hope and denial. Here are very wise words, and we all know this to be true. End of life decisions should not be made at end of life. I can tell you in my 27-year nursing career, I have been at the bedside of dying patients More times than I can count. Oh, hello, somebody talking to me? More times than I can count, with family all around, not wanting, they all want different things to happen. They want different treatments. And instead of supporting one another and loving that dying person, they are arguing. And sometimes families end up being that they stop talking to each other for the rest of their lives. I have seen that so many times. And that is something that we could avoid. And you know where it starts? That removing the denial of death, that starts with us. That starts with us. And you know, the two first webinars that in this series with Dr. Stephen Connor, Dr. Ariel Charo, and Laura Ramos, beautiful, wonderful, profound words. And talking to other patients or patients as well, right? Sometimes they are in denial and they are clinging to hope when there is no hope for a cure. And sometimes we just have to meet people where they are, and we can't change their outcome. But I believe they can be great teachers. They are the greatest teachers of how much extra excessive suffering we create by staying in this denial. Because the family, the patient, and the healthcare professionals, we all suffer. And so when that happens, I thank them for teaching me how things can be so sad, and I want to make it better. Sometimes we can nudge people along. Other times I even said, wow, you know, hoping for a cure. I would talk to them about, well, tell me what that is for you. What do you want to do? If you lived for 10 more years, what would you want to do? And sometimes without saying, oh, you're going to live, I could talk to them and allow them, because not everybody is going to be accepting of what they are going through. But again, if we can have more of these conversations, more of us will be able to. So the second takeaway, and this is one that I feel is so important. You know, many times when there are chronically ill people, terminally ill people, and dying people, everybody wants to leave it to the professionals, right? Oh, let's get the professionals in and the volunteers, and the professionals are wonderful and we need them. We also need our communities, right? Our family, our friends, our neighbors, our coworkers to be a part of our journey. Because when you think about it, being terminally ill or in the dying process, sometimes it's weeks and months and even years. Professionals cannot be there 24/7, but your journey is 24/7. And that is another part of our denial, right? Oh, the professionals are taking care of it. They don't need us. Well, here's the thing that I would like to put out there. In all of these challenging journeys, in grief, even as I was talking about divorce, diagnosis, job loss, mental health issues, drug addiction, whatever it may be, we need our village. We need everyone to be a part of it. So here's the thing. To be a part of someone's hard journey, we don't all need a PhD. We don't all need to be a professional to love and support people along the way. And you know, when someone needs to be hopeful and sometimes they just need to be heard, that can be a wonderful neighbor. That can be anyone. So we need our community to be a part of our journey. And professionals are kind of sometimes the forgotten grievers. You know, we forget that our professionals may have things personally that they are going through, and then professionally, they are trying to support everyone else. And sometimes they stay in denial about needing help, needing support. Well, professionals need their communities, and communities need their professionals. We need each other. Now, this is a slide from Pallium Canada, And Pallium is an international organization, I'm sure many of you know, that wants to make sure every person in the world has palliative care available to them. And the truth is, again, with a terminal illness or the dying process, formal caregivers, doctors, social workers, psychiatrists, professionals will be available to us about 10% of the time. 10% or less. So that means that other 90% is up to our community. And you think about it, when people hide behind, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to say, or they hope that somebody has the help they need, or they deny, oh, I think they're doing okay. We need to get better at community, to be a part of each other's journeys. Dr. Alan Kelleher is another one of my heroes. There is the Compassionate Communities movement. What he wants to bring back to communities is that death is a social event with a medical component, not a medical event with a social component. We need to bring death and dying back to our communities and have our village be a part of that journey, because a larger part of dying does happen outside of professional help and in the hospital. So we need to have these conversations more and more. And takeaway number 2, it takes a village to support those who are ill, caregiving, dying, bereaved, marginalized, and each other. Something to think about, because everyone is qualified, children included, to love and support people in their journey. So takeaway number 3. This is the most important takeaway. And I tell people, if you don't remember anything else that I said tonight, if you fell asleep a while ago, you better not be sleeping. But if you fell asleep and you don't remember anything, here is what I want you to remember. I want you to live by, teach by example, share with your children. And again, this is my hope for the world, because we can do better. People say, you know, when it comes to challenges and crisis and the dying process, there is no magic answer. And that's not true, because when people say, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to say, and they don't think there's a magic answer, and there is. When you don't know what to do, even if someone is in denial, even if someone is clinging to hope, and you don't know what to say, it's awkward, it's uncomfortable, and you can't fix it, the magic answer is just show up. Just show up. Just show up and allow their feelings. Just show up and allow their stories. Just show up and allow them to be who they are, meet them where they are. In all the people I interviewed for my book, my shows, everything, the things that made a difference were a hug, a text, an email, somebody called, somebody dropped by, sat down and just listened. They cried together. They just showed up and allowed their humanness. They allowed them to be human. They allowed them to fall apart. I don't know what to say, but I'm here. I'm with you. You are not alone. Just show up. Imagine if we all learned that. Imagine if we all knew it was uncomfortable. Yeah. I always tell people, don't wait for this to be comfortable. It's not comfortable. I have been at the bedside of more dying people than I can count. I have been to more funerals than I can count. And there's still many moments that I'm awkward and I'm uncomfortable and I don't know what to do and I don't know what to say. I just show up. I just show up. And every single time it means something to that person. We make it more complicated. We think we have to come up with a brilliant answer. We think that if they're in denial, we have to get them out, that if they're hopeful and it's not going to happen, it is not always our job to judge and to fix it. We can love and support them along the way by just showing up. And so again, those were the things that made the difference, or helping with life's tasks. The things that when you are grieving or someone's dying or you're in crisis, you don't feel like walking the dog, cutting the grass, those things that going to the grocery store. Do those things. Those are the things that I do for people. I also sit and listen, and I will cry together, and I will be a mess, and I have no problem with that. So that is my gift. I will acknowledge and allow their feelings. And the other thing that we tend to do is minimize their story. We want it to be better. Oh, it's okay, it's not that bad. No, just allow it. Just allow their hopeful story. Allow whatever it may be. It's not your job to fix it. You don't have to tell this story, your story. Now, I don't know if you have the golden rule there in Uruguay and Argentina, but the golden rule, you know, treat people as you want to be treated. I say no. And I will ask you a question. Has anybody ever tried to hug somebody that doesn't like to be hugged? I have, and this lady said to me, please don't touch me, I don't like to be touched. You see, because when I'm grieving, I want to be hugged. And so she was grieving, so I thought she'd want to be hugged, but I learned a very valuable lesson in that sometimes we always need to treat people the way they want to be treated. And you know what? It's okay to ask too. It's okay to ask. So what I have done is now I devote my life to sharing the wonderful words of like Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and many the greats who came before us. And my part in this is having people talk about before grief arrives and build themselves a foundation. And that had to start with me. I need to do that for myself first. And you know, we all knew the stages of grief. Here there's a few extra, but they talked about Elizabeth's stages of grief forever. And again, that's not what she meant. Grief is not linear. What Elizabeth wanted us to know was that it was complicated and unpredictable. And we all know, truthfully, that grief actually looks like this sometimes, doesn't it? Grief can be very messy. And we have to be okay with not being okay and being uncomfortable and not denying someone's experience. And you could have a grief attack 5 years after something, a loss, somebody died, whatever you went through. It can happen. And again, if we can just allow this, people feel validated and their pain is diffused. And I really love this beautiful Aboriginal proverb from Australia. We're all visitors to this time, this place. We're just passing through. Our purpose here is to observe, to learn, to grow, to love, and then to return home. And when I am grieving someone and my heart feels broken, I remember this. Because part of being able to create social change where we don't hold on to hope and denial when it is hurting us and others is to have a belief. What do we believe about life and death? And again, Elizabeth's work with that is extraordinary. People often ask me, you know, when someone has died, said, how can I move forward? How can I go on? What can I do? And I've learned so many beautiful things as I speak to people. I learn every day from others. And I love this. One lady said that when her dad died, she had to go to his house. We have a lot of snow here in the winter. I know you don't have snow there. We have a lot. And she didn't want to go to her dad's house because she knew she would have to shovel snow for a long time to get to the door. But when she got there, the walkway was shoveled, and there was a little note on the door that said, "I shoveled the walkway in memory of your dad." Isn't that so beautiful? It was just so moving to me. And a mother told her daughter, when the mother was dying, the daughter said, "Mom, what can I do?" And the mother said, "Grow." Grow. And rituals, you know, we need to have rituals that can help us through our pain of loss. And in our family, when someone is grieving or someone died, we have a beautiful candle that we light, and we write their name in hearts. And my children, and by the way, I have twins. We have 3 children, but our twins were home when I was writing my book. They were 9 when I was writing it, and they are part of all of these conversations. They are well prepared. They know that we don't all die of old age. We don't always get a warning. They know how to just show up. So I know that we can create social change with our youth. And they know these rituals. When they see that candle, they know someone is in pain, and we're going to keep them in our hearts. And my friend Matthew gave me the best advice when I said, when someone said, how can we best honor someone who has died? He said, be the evidence that someone's life made a difference. These were cards he gave out at his dad's funeral. Be the evidence that someone's life made a difference. Very profound. So those are 3 takeaways. I've been talking too long, so I better step it up a little. Because here's the thing that I know every single person knows this, but not everybody is great at this. And this is going to be takeaway number 4. We talk about self-care a lot, and a lot of us don't do it. And a lot of us take care of others, especially if you are interested or have a passion for the field of grief, death, or dying, and you want to help others. That is so wonderful, and I honor you for that. And here's the truth, is that if you are not a great self-caregiver, if you do not have that foundation of coping skills and strategies to help you through life, grief, and death, to help you when you are surrounded by hope that it isn't hope for a cure when you know it isn't going to happen, or denial, if you don't have those skills and that understanding about life and death, you will not be able to serve others without suffering excessively. I know, because that's what I did for 27 years. I helped others and I suffered. And so now I am changing, and I am taking care of me first. And I have those skills that I continue ongoing learning. And these are my children and my husband. And we all created a self-care toolbox so that when we are grieving, we have things to reach in there and help us, because we all grieve differently, and different things help us feel better. So obviously you see my son had movies, my daughter did art, my husband just likes to go to the garage, and I have all of these beautiful letters from chemotherapy patients and thank yous and all of these gifts that they gave me. And I also have in there my tambourine. Now my tambourine is special to me because I played on many stages with a tambourine. I was not invited by the band, but if I would see a tambourine, I would play. And then one time they told me they didn't have a tambourine for me. So I said, that's okay, I have my own. But my tambourine reminds me that I am in charge of making my own music. I am in charge of developing my own skills. And that reminds me, I can shine my light for others. I can be a part of their village. I can just show up for others if I take good care of me first. And you know, I've heard so many people say, oh, this person makes me happy, or this person makes me sad, or people feel obligated to make others happy. The truth is, we cannot make other people happy, and they cannot make us happy. So that is actually good news, because making yourself happy is your responsibility. And you can be a great example to others by creating your own happiness. So let's stop trying to make everybody else happy and feeling burnt out by that, and not having the coping skills and strategies so that we can be there for others as an example of our internal happiness, because that will also help us cope through life, grief, and end of life. And I think that everybody has to say this to themselves. I'd love everybody to say this. Say, I love me. I love me. Because you know what? You are wonderful. You are flawed. And you are imperfect. And you are fabulous. And whatever you've done in the past or haven't done in the past that you wish you had done differently, all you can do now is forgive yourself and others and do it better next time. So takeaway number 4, if you want to be able to show up for others, you must show up for yourself first. It is not something that you can pretend or deny or hope you're going to be. You have to show up for yourself first. All right, we're getting there. Takeaway number 5. I love this because I ask this every time, and a lot of times people will stop looking at me when I say, do you know this couple? I won't ask if they are the couple. How many of you know a couple who's been married for decades, many, many years, and the wife becomes ill or she dies and the husband has never even made a sandwich? He's never cooked because the wife does all the cooking. Does that happen there too? What about the husband if he becomes ill or he dies and the wife doesn't know how to function in the house? She may not know how to even pay bills. So you see there, that happens all the time, certainly here in Canada and the US, and I'm sure there too. Because what we do is deny that it's possible that that person isn't going to be there someday. And again, we create excessive suffering in our own lives, right? We hope that that person is going to live, we're going to live together until we're 105. And even in illness, we deny it sometimes. So what I want to encourage everyone is to think about it. When you think about your village, just showing up for yourself first, you want to be independent or self-reliant, because life is unpredictable and we need to prepare for anything. So when I looked in my home and I realized that I did not know how to operate our generator and the power used to go out a lot, only my husband could do it. So I said, I can't tell people to look around in their house and see the things that would cause them suffering if the other person wasn't there to do it. So I learned how to operate my generator. Because takeaway number 5 is structure your life in such a way that you are self-reliant, and so are the people surrounding you. It's an important one, something to think about. Okay, we're getting there. I have 5 minutes. I better get going. Takeaway number 6. I felt like with my takeaways, I was getting points that were important for people. And I thought, I need something more. And so I went to visit my friend Minnie. She was 105 at the time. And I said, Minnie, we need to create change. People cling to hope and they deny what is happening often, and it causes suffering for everyone around them and for themselves. How can we create change? And she thought about it for a minute, and then she said, you know, we all need a post, something that we can hold on to, that can be there for us no matter what. in times of despair. And I thought that was brilliant. I said, Minnie, that's amazing. Because a post is something that we can turn to that is permanent. For some people, it is their religion, a spirituality, music, nature, art. Something we can turn to help us express our pain, something that we can turn to hold on to when other things are very challenging in life. Because relationships change, life changes, everything is only temporary. So we need something permanent to hold on to. So I say, find your post and hold on to it, whatever that may be for you. So those are 6 of my 7 takeaways. And the last takeaway is about legacy. And here's my lovely family, my beautiful children and my husband. We have been on a roller coaster of grief and joy and hope and denial and pain and love and all of it. And we are together and growing and learning every day. And I want my children to know that part of what I want to leave is that I am continuously learning. And I want them to know that laughter, love, gratitude, and being the change were always so important to me. And so when we think of our legacy, legacy is not something we create at the end of our lives. Legacy is something we create throughout our lives. And when I think of the beautiful legacies and the creating social change and the people that are here to learn, it's a beautiful part of your legacy. And I applaud you for it. And this is something that I believe we should ask ourselves frequently. What will your legacy be? And that's takeaway number 7. And so as I wrap up, I just want to share that a legacy of kindness and being the change, even small change, being the best person that you can be, being the best example for your family, your children, is a great legacy. And for mine, I am so, you don't all have to leave your career to create change, but that is what I chose. And I wrote my book, my TED Talk, and my programs. And at Love Your Life to Death, our vision is that everyone lives, grieves, and dies well. And our mission, see that bracelet? This is my bracelet. It says, I just showed up. So our mission is to teach people how to just show up for themselves and others so they can prepare for and navigate grief and life's challenges. And when we do that, we will be able to diffuse hope and denial. Something to think about. So the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross Foundation, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. This beautiful foundation here, Argentina-Uruguay, thank you so much for this invite. Thank you for the work that you do, because together we are creating change. I imagine a world where we can have these conversations, these hard conversations about life, grief, death, hope, and denial, and be okay to cry, to laugh, to be upset. And I imagine a world where we all learn that when you don't know what to do and you don't know what to say, it's awkward, it's uncomfortable, and you can't fix it, you remember that the magic answer is just show up. Finally, my call to action, if you want to be a part of the change, you want to be able to just show up, plan your life, plan your death, and then just love your life to death. And always bring your own tambourine to the party. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. Muchas gracias, Yvonne. Bueno, ahora damos lugar a las preguntas. Vamos a empezar con las que aparecieron en Facebook y también alguna que apareció aquí. Yvonne, there's a first question. I can see you. Yeah, there you are. Medium is asking, why do we deny death?
Oh, I love that question. When I wrote my book, that was the first thing I asked. And, you know, I will just say, it's so sad that when I think of Elizabeth's work and what she started was decades ago, and then everybody just kind of didn't, if we would have listened to her back then, we wouldn't be denying death. But we just became busier and busier, and with medical technology, we felt like we could cure anything. And then our elderly used to live among us, right? And in our culture, they certainly do not. They go away at nursing homes. And the funeral home takes care of people as they're dying. They take care of the body. They take care of everything. And many people die in intensive care. So we have pushed it away step by step, not even realizing the damage that we are creating. And so that's why I say it's time to bring this back to community where we can love and support one another through this. It was a slow process, and now we realize that we are suffering because of it.
Thank you, Yvonne. We have another question from Teresita. She's sharing this following text. I love my life, but I want to prepare my daughter for my own death. I lost a son. And her answer is, I could die before you. I can't talk about it with my daughter. Anything you can tell Teresita about this comment?
Yes, that is what is normal. That is what we all do. And that is what the culture that I want to change. I believe that when we turn 18, everybody should do an end of life plan and make decisions, and then just update it every year. But you see, of course, and I send you love as you shared. Thank you for sharing that you've lost your son. I mean, that's just heartbreaking. And what you can do, and the only thing that you can do, is prepare yourself. Do your end of life plan, do everything. And then maybe sometimes just have that hard talk and say, I know that you do not want to talk about this and it's hard, I get it. And I really need for us to do this so that we can eliminate the excessive suffering that happens when we don't have these conversations. And I don't know how old your daughter is, but you know, everyone should. Like, people don't want to do end of life planning because then it just seems like, oh, I don't want to talk about that. It's so scary. But if we just normalize that everybody just has an end of life plan. But again, that's going to take a lot of change, right? So I would just encourage you to do your own planning and let her know that you need to have that hard conversation, and maybe give her a timeline. Say, by this date, I'm just going to let you know a few things. And you can also do a recording. I tell people they can do a recording. So you could say, hello, daughter. Well, you weren't going to listen to me, so I recorded this for you. That's another way too. I hope that helped.
Okay, thank you, Yvonne. Another question about death, dying, grief. Andrea is asking, she lost her daughter who was 17 just 8 months ago, in just 20 days because of an illness. She was not prepared, and she is asking, how do you recover from that? How do you get over it?
First of all, I send you love. And thank you for sharing that. Very painful. We never get over, we don't get over grief, right? And that's, a lot of people will tell us. They think that they're helping, right? Telling us, oh, you know, it's time to get over this. When it comes to that kind of deep heartache and grief, it doesn't leave, but you get stronger with it, right? And you get stronger by learning about, again, like from the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross Foundation, you can learn so much about life and death. And Elisabeth had a belief about, like, we are all here for however long we're here, and our lives can have meaning. And we can continue to share the memories, and we can continue to try to understand that life and death, and why would my daughter die at this age? Why? It's a question that if you ask why, you will never have an answer that is good enough, right? But if you can be kind to yourself and allow your grief, allow it, and know that it is something you will carry with you, and you will get stronger with it. And connect with people. If you want to connect with me, I also have other good resources. It is an ongoing process, not something to get over. So if anyone tells you, tell them, Yvonne said it, this isn't something to get over. This is something that you learn to live with, and be the evidence that your daughter's life made a difference. So thank you for sharing.
So we have another question. How can I support somebody who is grieving and is experiencing a lot of guilt?
Yes. Oh, that's such a good one. If you speak English, you should watch my TED Talk because it is so challenging. People have guilt. Oh my goodness, we all carry so much guilt, right? That person was carrying a lot of guilt, right? That's what the person said. They have guilt. Yes. I mean, I went through it when my son, had problems with drugs and addiction. Oh, what didn't I do? What did I miss? It's my fault. I'm the mother. And, I feel that as a friend, if you can listen, because people just say, oh, don't feel guilty. Well, you feel guilty. I feel what I feel, right? Like we want to fix it. If you can be that friend that says, that must be so hard to feel that way. Tell me more. I'm listening. I don't know what to say, but I'm here. And it is a hard story, and it is hard to feel guilty. And then hopefully in a conversation to say, when people can express how they feel their guilt, and then to move on would be to forgive yourself and maybe learn how to do it differently next time. So acknowledging, yeah, you feel guilty, this is hard, tell me about it, because people don't want people to hurt. Oh, you shouldn't feel guilty. Oh, you should get over it. Oh, you should move on. No, we just need to feel it, and it's hard. And it's hard as a friend to hear. And when people feel guilty, people always say, oh, you did your best. Don't feel guilty. I'm going to say, maybe you didn't do your best. Maybe I missed something. Right? Yeah, that's hard. So if we can allow people to just express those hard feelings, I believe that's the best you can do. It's not easy. Just show up anyway. See what I did there?
Thank you, Yvonne. To us, it's every question. It opens a whole reflection, and it's very deep going. Yeah. It's difficult sometimes to summarize it just in a short answer, but it's great what you're doing. Thank you.
Well, and I appreciate these questions. They're, that's where pain sometimes gets caught, because we're not going to talk about those hard things. This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Yeah, that's the idea of this kind of meetings. Yeah.
Yes.
Have opportunity to talk about it. No, that's a whole beginning. Jessica's asking, Yvonne, do you think that this context of COVID-19 is getting us closer to appreciate death and from another point of view, and also life?
I think that is a wonderful question, and I think it's yes, it is, and no, it isn't. For some people, they're going to stay in that denial, right? Oh, this has been awful. I can't wait till this is over. This has been awful. But there are many that are saying, you know what? This has been an opportunity to see my life where I need to change things, to see that we don't talk about death, to see the opportunity. And I believe that more are seeing opportunity. Well, look at this. Look at this connection, this global connection with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and all we've learned from one another, right? So there has been tremendous growth and opportunity and realization that we are ill prepared for death. I think a lot of people are realizing how ill prepared we are, even as communities. And so I think it's both, but there is more growth and opportunity. And like, look at all the people that are here tonight. And I encourage everyone to really soak in, you know, whatever you've taken from this and continue to learn and share, right? Like being that example of how we can do things differently. COVID made us see when I left my career, I did it because we don't talk about grief. I didn't know a pandemic was coming. That is global grief. We are grieving so many things. And we are opening our eyes to how ill prepared we are. So I'm very hopeful that we will have a better, people say, can't wait to get back to normal. I say, oh, no. I'm holding out for way better. Absolutely.
So we have a question from Graciela. My husband doesn't bear to hear the word death. It's very difficult for him to deal with grief and loss. How can I help him?
Well, your husband is why I wrote a book. That's why I wrote a book. The best that you can do is you yourself learn what you believe about life and death. Prepare for end of life. And then you can approach your husband and say, you know, this was scary, this was hard, but I did this for myself and for you, because if this is hard for you, see, here's the thing, right? People say, oh, this is too hard, I don't want to talk about it. Well, imagine when it happens, it makes it 10 times harder because you have to talk about it at some point. That's what I try to explain to people. I know you don't want to talk about it. Don't wait until you want to talk about it. That's never going to happen. So if you can start with yourself and be really well prepared and maybe find resources, and again, this foundation is a perfect place for resources that maybe helped you, then maybe you could help him along. But we will not change everyone. The best we can do is be a good example and help people along the way in just little steps. Now, some people you have to push. Like when I was writing my book and I did my end of life plan, I said to my husband, honey, I am telling everyone that they have to do their end of life plan, and their spouses do too, and their children, and you haven't done yours yet. You have to do it. So I kept bugging him until he finally did it. So it has to start with you and gentle nudging, and you can push if you want to. because you will be helping him in the end, right? You will help him suffer less. That's all the things I avoided and denied in my nursing career. Now that I've studied and like Elizabeth's work and everything, I am more empowered than ever. And I am more at peace with the fact that people die at all ages. I don't love that. And it breaks my heart when it happens. And I know how to move myself through my own grief. It's the best we can do.
Yvonne, there are a lot of messages of gratefulness, of appreciation of your presentation. You will see them afterwards in the chat, but I want to mention it to you.
Thank you.
People are really moved and touched and grateful. There's a lot of expression of muchas gracias, you know.
I know what that means.
We have time just for one more question, but people are also asking if your book is translated into Spanish. Do you know?
It is not, but if anyone's a translator, I would love to translate it in Spanish.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, I want it in all the languages.
We can offer your webpage, or where can people look your work and maybe look up also the content of the book and so on?
Yes. Yeah. Just my website is the name of the book, loveyourlifetodeath.com.
Okay, we will write it down on the chat.
Okay. Yeah, and you can connect with me anytime.
Great, thanks for that. Last question. Maria Fernandez asking, is there always a post in your experience?
Ooh, that's a great question. I've never had. You know, it's interesting because a lot of people don't have a post. Isn't that such a little wise Minnie, 101 years old, saying you have to find your post? I believe that if you search for what you love, like what you love to do, what feeds your heart, what feeds your soul, that is something you can turn to no matter what. You can find your post, right? Like I know for my daughter, it's music, right? That is what soothes her. That is what she turns to. For me, it's nature. I go out in nature. I will hug a tree. I need, the sunshine and all of that, and I love it. My son goes out and he's like, well, there's a tree. So that's not his post, right? So I believe we can all find our post. It's just, we just listen to what we love, what speaks to us. Art, music, nature, something. And if not, I encourage people to dig a little deeper because I feel like you will find it. Yeah, nature is a good one.
Great, Yvonne, thanks for that.
Well,
now we are going to be saying goodbye. Mauro, do you want to take this part?
Cintia, si te parece, voy cerrando. Yvonne, muchas gracias por esta presentación tan inspiradora. Nos ayudaste a crecer como personas, y es creciendo como personas que podemos acompañar mejor a nuestros seres queridos y a nuestros pacientes. Nos alegra profundamente que seas parte de la familia EKR. Te agradecemos nuevamente en nombre del capítulo Argentina-Uruguay de la Fundación, y esperamos contar contigo próximamente. Un gran abrazo.
So I'll try to say Mauro's words in English for you, Yvonne. Thanks so much, Yvonne, for this inspiring presentation. It helps us to keep growing as human beings. And in this way, you are making us better companions and caregivers to our loved ones, our patients, and ourselves. We are sincerely happy that you are part of the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross family, And on behalf of our chapter, Argentina-Uruguay, we really hope to keep learning with you in the future. So,
thank you so much. I will just show up for you anytime. Thank you. Muchas gracias.
Finalmente, antes de irnos, si les parece, quiero comentarles que el video de esta charla va a estar disponible en nuestro canal de YouTube la próxima semana, y tenemos planificado un próximo evento para el jueves 24 de junio, que va a ser una actividad virtual inspirada en el formato Death Café o Café de la Muerte, para intercambiar respetuosas reflexiones sobre la vida y la muerte, de modo de seguir aprendiendo y sensibilizándonos sobre temas tan relevantes que nos tocan a todos. Les vuelvo a invitar a nuestra página web, www.ekrdelplata.com, así como las páginas de Facebook, Instagram y nuestro canal de YouTube. Quiero agradecer a los amigos de todo el mundo que nos acompañaron, agradeciendo fuertemente la presencia de todos, y los esperamos en junio próximamente. Muchas gracias por todo.